Okay, so that was my son Colin, and I was on pause too long, and so it stopped the video. So now it's going to be in two parts on this video, so that's weird. But anyway, this is a continuation of the podcast from earlier. Two parts. What are you going to do? Family influences. We were talking about um, people reason with their children at a slightly higher level than the children were currently at, much as in the method of scaffolding. So the people who reason with their children at a higher level than what the children were at, the children learned more about moral reasoning and things. So don't be afraid to talk to the child at a level higher and explain to them because that's how we learn. The children who advanced the best, or excuse me, the least, were those whose parents had lectured them, or challenged, or contradicted their opinions. Because your child's not going to learn if you're telling them they're wrong. You know, that's their opinion. You can phrase it different ways. So, well, I see what you're saying, but what about this? You know, how would that make them feel and things? So there's ways you can, you know, guide them without telling them no, your opinion is wrong because no one's opinion is wrong, but everybody got their own opinion. Um, Validity for women and girls, and that's something that I didn't think we'd ever have to struggle for again here in the United States of America. But hey, guess what? A resurgence in sexism is coming back in. So unfortunately, it is. Carol Gilligan has argued that Kohlberg's theory of is oriented towards values more important to men than to women. Um, According to Gilligan, women see morality not so much in terms of justice and fairness as of responsibility to show care and avoid harm. And that's because we're the nurturers, we're the creators in society. We believe it's our job to take care of other people. I have heard sociologists say men are destroyers, women are creators. I'm not 100% in alignment with that. There are creative men who create. Not all men are destructive and destroy. Not all women are creative and create. Some women are destructive and destroy. So there's no straight across the board opinions on that. That's kind of sexist to assume that all men and women are exactly the same. Both men and women value the ethic of care. However, some research has found gender differences in moral judgment in early adolescence, with girls scoring higher than boys. Um, this may be because girls generally mature earlier and have more intimate social relationships. So, you know, the girls have a little edge on the boys when it comes to moral development because we do mature faster and we're more social than the boys are. So we see more interactions and we internalize more interactions. So the girls have a leg up on moral reasoning than the guys. Sorry, guys. Early adolescent girls do tend to emphasize care related concerns more than boys do, especially when tested with open ended questions or self chosen moral dilemmas related to their own experience. Um, when the jokes are made about, a woman in a position of authority and how it'd be bad once a month, blah, blah, blah. Actually, women are more empathetic. So, actually, we'd probably be better off with a woman in charge. And, as far as PMS goes, um, whatever. That's very sexist. Especially since a woman in PMS is actually usually more calm than a man on a regular day. And again, that's kind of a sexist joke for me to say that. Cross cultural validity. Cross cultural studies support Kohlberg's sequence of stages up to a point. Older people from countries other than the United States do tend to score at higher stages than younger people. Um, so here in the United States, the good old moral reasoning is not as valued um, as it is in other parts of the world. However, people in non Western cultures rarely score above stage 4. And the reason for that might be the cooperation is stressed so much in these countries that the individuation kind of takes a back seat. Does this mean that these cultures do not foster higher moral development? No. It seems more likely that some aspects of Kohlberg's definition of morality may not fit the cultural values of some societies, especially when it's cooperation and getting along and not causing trouble or making waves. You know, that doesn't really fit in with the Western ideal. When Kohlberg's dilemmas were tested in India, Buddhist monks from Ladakh, a Tibetan enclave, see, scored lower than lay people. And I mean, we wouldn't think that was the case because the Buddhist monks are supposed to be all about, you know, um, being enlightened, being compassionate and understanding. But, the test itself was a little Western biased. So they might not have gotten all of it. Apparently, Kohlberg's model, while capturing the pre conventional and conventional elements of Buddhist thinking, was inadequate for understanding post conventional Buddhist principles of cooperation and nonviolence. So the, um, monks just really couldn't understand the Western ways of thinking and reasoning about certain things. So they didn't score as well as, they probably would have if it were geared towards their society. It also has been argued that stages 5 and 6 cannot fairly be called the most mature stages of moral development since they restrict maturity to a select group of people who are given to philosophical reflection. So they're not saying everybody who is, philosophical is necessarily of high moral, you know, development. And that can definitely be true. Kohlberg's own view was that before people can develop a fully principled morality, they must recognize the relativity of moral standards. So they have to understand that there's a moral standard, and this is for everyone's good. Many young people question their earlier views about morality when they enter high school or college or the world of work and encounter people whose values, culture, and ethnic background are different from their own. And sometimes that's unfortunate because sometimes you taught your child to be this decent person and then they come in with a group of people who are not like that. Um, and they can have an undue influence on them and teach them ways that are not necessarily good ways that you appreciate. They begin to understand that every society evolves its own definitions of right and wrong. In some cases, the values of one culture may seem shocking to members of another. And I'm sure that's the case. Like if you go to Africa and you see the Maasai and we're cutting cows' throats and getting blood and boiling that in milk, most Western people are like, oh gosh, what the, you know. While as over there, that's a very common, thing to increase their stamina and strength. And, it's part of the society. So, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to moral reasoning. For example, the practice of circumcising girls before puberty or female genital mutilation, as we call it here in the West, but over there they call it the circumcision of girls. And they think that's a perfectly okay thing. You circumcise a boy, you can circumcise a girl. There's a little difference there. But over here we consider that genital mutilation. Widely practiced in some parts of the world as a way of preserving virginity before marriage, reducing sexual appetite, enhancing beauty, and affirming femininity, has been condemned as harmful and abusive by the American Medical Association and World Health Organization, but continues to be practiced in many cultures. Personally, I would not want to have that done. And there are males who don't want to be circumcised. I feel like that particular thing should be a individual choice. Um, I mean, it's cosmetic. Let's face the facts. You know, unless you were a Jew back in the day, and you did it for your religious beliefs, it's for pretty much cosmetic thing. Educational and vocational issues. School is a central organizing experience in most adolescents' lives. It offers opportunities to learn information, master new skills, and sharpen old ones, to participate in sports, the arts, and other activities, to explore vocational choices, and to be with friends. So, school can help with all of these things. Um, it is to develop a person. Now, sometimes if the school environment is toxic, you might wish you homeschooled, but you know, in general, it's a good experience for kids. Excuse me. It widens intellectual and social horizons because they learn more with certain teachers, and they're exposed to more culture and things than they might normally be at home. Some adolescents, however, experience school not as an opportunity, but as one more hindrance on the road to adulthood. And these are usually students who don't do that well in school. Can't wait to get out of school and become an adult, get a job, whatever. And to them, a school is a waste of time. They don't realize school can be a stepping stone to higher education, or to vocational education, where they can have a better job than they would if they decided I'm not going to finish school. Let's examine influences on school achievement and how adolescents divide their time among school, work, and other activities. Then we'll look at why some young people drop out of school and what penalties they and society pay. Because if you drop out of school, you're not going to get as good a job as if you finish and get into a higher education in general. Now, yes, there are random stories about random people who did this and fell into money, and okay, that's very rare, you know. And if that happens to you, that's awesome, but that's a very rare thing. Finally, we'll consider planning for higher education and vocations. Mm-mm-mm. In the year 2000, 88% of Americans aged 25 to 29 had completed high school, as compared with only 71% in 1971. So if you can imagine that, you know, um, it's kind of crazy that back in the 1970s, only 71% of kids graduated, whereas now 88. And in my graduating class, I only know of like 4 kids who dropped out. So we must have had a pretty good class. But as in the elementary grades, such factors as socioeconomic status, the quality of the home environment, and parental involvement continue to influence the course of school achievement. Because if the parent thinks education is important, then so will the child. If the parent's like, school didn't do me any good, I don't care if you finish or not, then they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to drop out and go get a job. Because, again, children learn what they live. In a longitudinal study of 174 disadvantaged children, these factors, as measured in first grade, closely predicted improvement or deterioration in academic performance by age 16. So, they can look at a kid in the first grade and measure them and see which kids are not going to do that well in school. Um, and that's why ECE is so important, because if your child is already falling behind in the first grade, then there needs to be some intervention. And that child needs help, and as a parent, it should be your desire to help that child as much as you can. Other factors include peer influence, quality of schooling, and perhaps most important, students' and parents' belief in their ability to succeed. Because if you believe in the child, then the child can believe in themselves. And that's the most important thing you can foster is a child's belief in themselves. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. So I hope this has maybe helped you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share so we can spread this educational program around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want to help me out even more, go on my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.